that it? Yeah, that's better. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the December 13th meeting of the Westfield Building Corporation. John, call for a quorum.
Steve Latour.
Here.
Larry Colino.
Here.
Ron Moore.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda is to approve the minutes from the September 20th meeting. Those minutes were published. Have you had an opportunity to review those minutes? Had a couple of questions. On the bottom of the first page, under the update for Station 81, it says that I asked a question about how what testing was done. I did get an answer to that. It was the Proctor test that was performed, and had another question. The last sentence in the minutes from the 20th says that that Steve Latour had requested that Chief Gaylor provide a construction update to Westfield City Council sometime in the next 3 months. That would include the soil, and it doesn't say soil water, it just says soil. I'm assuming that would be a soil issue or something like that. Just a word or two there. That was all that I saw. Otherwise, they're good.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes with the corrections.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Okay, Ron Moore.
Yes.
Larry Colino.
Yes.
Steve Latour.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on, we have John Nail, I guess, to provide us with some information about a request for an easement for the Indiana Department of Transportation.
Yeah, that's right. For the record, John Nail, City Westfield Director of Public Works. So as you all are aware, we were working on the State Road 32 project through our downtown. We're widening 32, essentially from Poplar Street over to just east of East Street on the south side of the road mostly to accommodate a 4-lane boulevard section through our downtown. Additionally, we have Union Square coming in and being developed in the near term between Mill Street, Jersey Street, Union, and 32. Obviously, you guys are involved with that project pretty significantly as well. With the 32 project, we have coordinated extensively with Old Town to ensure that grades tie together and that we're designing in coordination with their site plan. However, the Indiana Department of Transportation doesn't want to be in a position to rely solely on a developer to come through and to bring some of those grades up to a level that we're going to tie into with our 32 project. Although we firmly believe that Old Town will beat us there, they'll be ready and be constructed prior to us finishing the 32 project. NDOT is very specific about wanting to have assurances and land rights in a temporary form in a temporary right-of-way easement in case that project doesn't move forward. Now, we fully believe it will, and it'll be there first, but essentially what's before you is simply a temporary easement for slope construction in the event that Old Town hasn't brought those grades up in time prior to our road construction. And mainly those temporary easements are for the box culvert that runs underneath 32 that, as you're probably aware, Old Town is extending and encapsulating through their site. That should be in place first, and we're going to tie into that box culvert. But the majority of these slope temporary easements for slope construction is to correctly have wing walls and so forth on that box culvert in the event that they haven't encapsulated that stream yet. So I think this is a formality. We don't believe that these easements will even be necessary because Old Town will follow through with their project and bring those grades up. But NDOT was specific about wanting the ability to have those land rights in the event that something goes askew. So that's what's before you today. There was a question about not having a drawing about the temporary easements. That's not standard to draw the temporary easements. However, I did provide some plan documents that show where those temporary right-of-way easements would be located relative to the right-of-way and relative to the existing parcel lines. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, I have a couple of questions for you. First of all, the garage that we're involved in is significantly within the boundaries of the Old Town building site. Old Town, I am, as I am aware, that they're building and encapsulating the garage itself. So what I hear you say is this is about whether they get the grade up or not. How will that impact us other than the culvert?
So there's a little bit of a depression area in some places. And so when NDOT and American Structure Point, the designer on the project, did their original survey, they were showing a roadway that they design as if Old Town's not there, because that's what NDOT wants to see. They don't want to be reliant on another developer to bring those grades up. So where you see any kind of temporary easement encroaching on where the garage would be is simply for, in the case we need to build some kind of side slope to tie into the existing grade. Again, we fully believe that garage will be in place, and the temporary easements will not be necessary at all.
Okay. And this has nothing, this will have no impact whatsoever on the building of the garage or bringing things up to grade?
Not
is simply to accommodate any kind of unforeseen need that they may have subject to non-performance? So.
Exactly, yep.
Okay, all right. Any other questions?
What are the timelines that we're talking about here, both on NDOT and Old Town?
So we are on, for 32, we are on the October 2023 letting schedule with NDOT, which means that we will be receiving bids and awarding the low bid to a contractor in October of 23. Now, I would point out that there's going to be some extensive utility relocation work that still has to happen between now and then before the contractor can really get into the meat of the road work. So we're really looking into 2024 for road construction in earnest. From what I've talked to Old Town about, they seem to be on a schedule that is in advance of that, and we have anticipated that with our 32 design. I don't want to speak for Old Town specifically on their construction schedule because it's really not my place, but I do believe that you're going to start seeing movement in the next couple of months on that site, and they will be beating us to being complete prior to our road construction being finalized.
Do we know when the garage, what's the target date on the garage being open to parking?
I'd really want to consult with Old Town before I spoke on the record about that, because I don't want to misspeak on their timeline. I haven't talked to them in the last month or so, so I'm not sure if anything's changed there.
Will the garage be open before the rest of the construction will be done?
Potentially that could happen, but I know we've tried to align it as best we can between Old Town and the 32 project to try and have everything complete at the same time to avoid some situations where you still have ongoing construction with a new garage right there. So
realistically, we're probably looking at 25?
I think that's fair for road construction to be totally complete, yes. The nice thing about this particular situation, and I know we've talked with Old Town extensively about this, but when they did work for the Monon Midtown in Carmel, they had kind of they had their project complete before the city had the Monon Midtown totally done. So you had some orange construction fence outside of the Sun King and some of these things. I know they wanted to avoid that in this situation. The good thing is, in this particular scenario, their development is really focused on the south portion of that property first, that's really facing our Grand Junction Plaza Park. So it's a little less intrusive with regards to construction on 32. You're gonna have access off a mill in Jersey. And so it's a little less of an issue than what they experienced in Carmel, I would say. But again, we definitely wanna try and time both projects up as best we can.
I'll note that the Lions Club has been torn down And I just saw a crane while I was driving back over here that was starting to tear down the yellow house. So things are moving, as you say, on the south side.
Yep,
Jeez, it was there yesterday. It's gone. Wow.
yeah.
There last week.
Hey, they're eager to get going, guys,
Yep.
for sure.
Okay. More question? Question?
I have no questions. I'll make a motion to approve the request for the easement.
I'll second that. I'll second that.
Steve Latour,
Yes.
Larry Colino,
Yes.
Ron Moore.
Yes? Okay. Next, we have an update from Old Town. Now, Old Town, because of the conflicts that we had this morning, cannot make it, and Jeremy is willing to step in here and give us an update from his conversations with Old Town. Jeremy.
Sure, yeah, they first wanted to send their apologies that they couldn't hang around. They had a conflict at 10:30, so I did have the opportunity to sit and talk to them about a few of your questions, at least the questions from Ron. Would you like to ask the questions, or you just want me to?
Just please go
So
ahead.
your first question was, what is the start date? And according to what Steve mentioned, they started really yesterday. They've had their erosion control installation. They're starting demo. I do know that their permit, their building permit, is in the building commissioner's office for consideration and approval. So they are moving forward at a pretty rapid pace. I would expect them to be on, as John stated, on a little quicker timeline. So I would assume the garage has really been, I guess, broadcast as an 18 to 24 month project. So it likely will be a little bit ahead of the 32 project from an opening perspective. Now we'll be well underway and nearing completion with 32 kind of during that same timeline. So they are well aware of the timelines. They've been in constant communication with John and his team and NDOT and Structure Point. Your next question was, will the State Road 32 project delay, or do they have any concerns about that? And their response was no, they don't have any concerns on 32 itself delaying their project. Right now, they're waiting on their permit approval for encapsulation of the ditch. So their 401, 404 permitting, as well as their 106 permitting for the environmental portion of what they are dealing with there. So those are their primary concerns. They are also awaiting, which both hinge a little bit on FEMA updating the floodplain map. FEMA has all that information. They really expect to hit the ground running pretty hard early in 23. So they're coming out of the ground pretty quick.
To be clear, by encapsulation of the creek, basically you're building a tunnel and the creek will go through the tunnel, right?
Correct. It's an
Okay.
elongated box culvert is what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll start on the north side of 32. It'll come under State Road 32 project, and it'll be enclosed with effectively green space through, green space and or parking lot through the project itself. So you won't know it's there, but the ditch will still function. It'll still dump into the Grassy Branch Creek in Grand Junction.
Yep.
Actually tying into our Jersey Street tunnel that we built with that project as well. So it'll all be encapsulated. We don't typically like to call it a tunnel because that encourages people to walk through it. We'd really prefer people not be inside the box culvert. Any potential headwinds that the building corp can assist with, they really didn't have any concerns. And
Okay.
the important part that they wanted to convey is that they're willing to come and update you as frequently as you want to, really probably a 90-day timeline. Once every 90 days, they would come forward to give you an update of where they were, what they did in the last 90 days, and what really the forward look is, inclusive of the expenses associated with that time frame. So they'll start taking monthly draws to cover the cost of their construction, and they'll come with information to identify what those expenses were. And I believe that answered
Yep.
the questions that Ron had. Do you all have any other questions that I potentially could answer?
You had the conversation with them. Did they offer anything else beyond that?
Not really. They had a question about the right-of-way vacation that was approved, whether or not it had been recorded, approved by council in October. I'll follow up and figure out where that stands. It's a kind of a formality at this point, but
Well, if you have a chance, please tell them that I said thank you for the time that they spent with us and the time that they spent with you to answer a few questions and provide a quick update to us. John, do we have any outstanding invoices from them at this point?
Not right now.
Okay. So it sounds like we're pretty much pulled forward. They started yesterday, and we can look forward to about 18 months of work going on the site that'll get this, bring this garage home.
very good.
Jeremy,
Did the bonds all get sold? Is all
yeah.
that's taken care
Yeah,
of?
bonds are all sold. That was all done months ago.
right.
So, yeah, we have the money available, and they will make requests and take draws as they need to.
Any other questions?
Very good.
Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate that. Okay, next, an update on the Station 81 progress. I'm really interested in hearing what we got here.
Good morning, Rob Gaylor, Westfield Fire Department. So at the Station 81 project, we had a builder-owner meeting on December the 6th of 2022, 1400 in the afternoon, which is our standard every other week meeting out there at the site. And I think one of the questions is a progress or an update on the construction with the facility. And at that time, ongoing mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, overhead piping, rough-ins were taking place. They were laying the exterior veneer, the brick, stuff like that. They expect that to take about 3 weeks or so. Roofing's ongoing in the admin area, top-out's ongoing in the admin area, and placing and grading stone. They were scheduled to do some paving on Friday of last week. And coming up is the exterior hardy board that they were doing. From our previous meeting in November, they started the northwest elevation on the apparatus, was ongoing. They had about 4 days to finish that when it come to the brick veneer. Pouring the remaining half of the apparatus bay, doing some electrical rough-in and stuff like that in the admin and the interior of the building, and finishing up part of the roof. Weather delays, nothing really to speak of as far as the timeline interruption with the project. Site logistics, they're working with Citizens Energy and on the water and sewer layout. Citizens Gas and Duke actually set the meter back in July. So again, things were moving forward at a rapid pace. Things are doing very well as far as submittals. Reviewed the submittal report. Everything was good as of December. I think that they were going to send some either late last week or this week for up-to-date expenses. The rest of the meeting went on. They call them RFIs, or request for information. And I think this is where you want to know status or engineering changes of some of the ins and outs. There's a couple little items. How high do we want the hose bibs in the apparatus bays? Where do we want the air to come in? Nothing glaring. We had a lot of discussion on some of the mechanicals dealing with washers and dryers and laundry areas, and rectified that. We're working with a company, headwinds or maybe some delays in the project, I believe was your next question. So we had some discussions about the cleaning agent in the data center. So in a data center with all the electronics and telephone and things like that that are taking place inside that computer equipment, you can't use a standard fire suppression system or water in those areas. So it requires what we call a clean agent system. And so the engineering and design folks spec'd a certain X product to be the clean agent. The lead time on that is longer than had anticipated. However, through research, Greg and his team at Hagerman have found that there are some other products out there that can be used that do the same thing, that do meet code. And so we're exploring those options to not delay the install of the fire suppression system in the data center.
Is that like a Halon system?
Yeah, we're not allowed to use Halon anymore, but very, very similar. So in the current public safety building, we use a product or system called the Sapphire system. So very, very similar, but same but different, as they say. We discussed the equipment purchases and working on scheduling a key-in meeting. So that is where we sit down and decide what key fits what door in which part of the building. It sounds entertaining if you guys would like to attend. We talked about signage, interior signage in the building, administration, things like that, training room, just plaques and stuff like that on identifying rooms. What else? I think your next question had to deal with the timeline and where we were at as far as any foreseen delays or anything in the scope of the project. Right now, as it stands, everything is still on track. The punch list is supposed to be completed at the end of April. In 23, that hasn't changed since day one. Obviously, as we get closer and closer to doing installs on owner-supplied stuff and things like that, actual occupancy of the building, I still feel is going to be maybe in that June timeframe, May-June timeframe, by the time we actually get up and functioning out of the building, pending no delays out of our control. The other big item that we've been talking about for a few weeks now is the transfer switch on the generator. Now, we talked about ordering the generator almost a year ago to spec that out, but it was almost a year or longer to get the transfer switch. For those of you that don't understand a transfer switch, it's when the power goes out, it automatically transfers the power to the backup generator. That little item has been the hot topic of discussion on whether or not we can get one in a timely manner and get it installed before we take occupancy. So if there's going to be a holdup, it's more than likely going to be something like that. And it's been on our target list for almost a year. So again, we have quite a few months. I don't know if it's going to be late or not. We're still crossing our fingers and hoping that's going to be here on time. So
How many suppliers do you have for that type of an item?
I'm going to defer that question to Greg. Mr. Delagrange, can you?
Yeah, so to answer that question, I don't know exactly how many suppliers. However, it's a spec'd item that has to match the generator and work with the generator. So they're two components that kind of come hand in hand. So the ATS right now it's kind of hop back and forth. Like Rob was saying that it could change tomorrow, but it was a March delivery ship date. Now it's a May ship date. We're hoping it kind of comes back towards April or March again, but it's kind of a moving target. So,
yeah, I would think that something that vital would be part of the package that you would get for the generator itself.
Correct, and sometimes they ship separately. So we've known this for a while. Our generator's that 1st of June, I think, somewhere in there of a ship date right now. So we're hoping that holds true as well.
Okay. So The generator and the switch are probably the last items before occupancy we're anticipating.
The switch, we would prefer to have sooner, just for the fact that you wire everything through the switch.
Yeah, I would think
for
so,
the-
yeah.
So that's why we're kind of hoping that date moves back up to March. But yes, ultimately, then the generator would be the last piece.
And that's an item that would hold up occupancy, right? The generator?
Yeah, I mean, if we can't raise the garage doors, we can't take calls.
That's a
So,
good point.
That's why I'm still saying, listen, I still feel that we're on our timeline. However, we got a couple things that are hanging over our head that are really out of our control. We've been keeping an eye on them for a year now almost, and we'll see what happens. So I still am confident that we can take occupancy in that May, June timeframe.
Well,
Hopeful.
we'll keep asking questions about this one.
Sure.
For sure, so.
Any other
thanks for the
questions?
information. Yeah, I have one question about a little bit of the old business. It was last time we discussed the project, we had an issue with, what was it, with the soil there. We needed to stabilize the soil. Has that been taken care of to your satisfaction?
So with that, it was, my understanding was to do some more testing and continue on with the projects and then go back and do some undercutting and fill in soil stabilization as needed.
Okay,
And everything up to date, those have been done in the critical areas for the building. And as far as the actual soil stabilization or compaction in the parking lots, I believe that they're going to look at that and address that again as they come to do the paving piece. And so it'll be piecemealed as we go along. To answer your question, is it up to my satisfaction with the project? Yes, it is.
okay, thank you. Any other questions?
No, I know this is probably more for Public Works, but I know they approved the furniture purchase a couple of months ago. Is that all on timeline too, or?
Absolutely. We've actually been working with a company here local to the Marion County, Hamilton County region, and gone back and forth on a few designs and color changes and this, that, and the other, and have decided on that and actually placed the order for the furniture. And they believe it's going to be here early and have actually agreed to store it until we're ready to put it in, install it in the building. So we're in good shape there.
So it looks like the key to this is that switch.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is.
Any questions?
I have none.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. I have one question for John, of course. Invoices and billings.
Yeah, so far, matter of fact, Greg just shipped me Pay App 13, and I processed that through Huntington, the trustee, yesterday.
Okay.
And basically with that Pay App, you're almost to the halfway point. So we're about 6.7 million in the balance right now.
Okay, so we're about halfway through the spend.
Yep.
Good, okay. Thank you, John. Any questions for the Station 81 team? I'm sorry, one more question for you. Are you satisfied with where you are? Are there any things that you need that we can support?
No, right now I'm satisfied where we're at.
All right.
I don't know that there's, I don't know the answer to the question that I don't have yet. How's that?
You know what? That sounds good to me.
Okay.
Sounds fine.
Chief, would you all be willing to give us a tour of the project sometime in January?
Yeah, if you guys would like to tour the facility, we can arrange a tour of the facility. As long as we can accommodate the construction crew's schedule and not interrupt, I don't think that that'll be an issue. You want to go next week?
Nope, I'd like to
Okay.
wait till January when the walls are up,
Okay.
Yeah.
all and at least a roof is present.
Yeah, so when we walk around, we'll at least be able to see rooms and understand the flow of the place, so.
Yes, it's actually, there are stud walls up now on the interior. You can walk around and recognize rooms and offices and what's going where. Matter of fact, here shortly, they're gonna be hanging drywall. So if you're looking at mid to late January, you'll probably be walking through a facility that has some interior drywall
Okay.
hanging to make it more recognizable, so.
Give you a chance to take a look at when they'll have that done and propose a couple of dates to us in that timeframe.
Okay, we'll do that.
And leave it up to you when you want us to come and stumble around in there.
We'll do that.
All right.
One administrative point, if you are all going to attend a tour at the same time, in an abundance of caution from an open door law standpoint, and probably notice that as a
As a public
special
meeting.
meeting of the building corporation. So we'll just take some
Okay.
coordination on that, not a problem, easy to do. Site visits are
So-
okay, we'll just notice it that way.
So we would need enough time to be able to notice the public of a special meeting of,
Yes, we would need to.
with,
All of them are together though, right? If we take them one at a time to the site, we have to recognize that as a public meeting?
If there's not a quorum, no.
well, it'd have to be one at a time then, because two of us can't meet, it's a quorum. So.
And if we
Put
did
that,
a
keep
pub-
that in your thoughts. about
And
how
and
you-
again, it's not, it's very little trouble to notice it as a special meeting. So I didn't want to dissuade you from doing it that way, just we'll need to notice it 48 hours in advance and notify the registered media outlets. It's easy.
If it were a public meeting, would the public have to be allowed to tour? I mean, it's just from a logistics standpoint, you don't want 10 people showing up when you expect 3, so.
Not if there's a safety concern.
Okay.
It would still have to call it a public meeting, but that doesn't mean everybody would get to traipse through the site necessarily.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll figure out how to work that out. Okay, thank you. Okay, next item was to take a look at the calendar and establish the meeting schedule for 2023. I'll just toss a proposal out there that we continue meeting quarterly until we get through some of the builds that we have in front of us, and have the same kind of agenda that we have, and I would propose second Tuesday at 10 a.m. That would be March, June, June, I'm sorry, September and December again. Does anybody have an alternative that they would like to
Are
discuss?
you making that a motion?
No, I'm just tossing it out for discussion. We can make a motion on that in a minute.
Sounds good to me.
Then I would entertain a motion on that.
I'll make that motion. The second Tuesday of March, June, September, and December, 10 o'clock
10 o'clock
here.
here in City Hall.
Here.
In City Hall.
I'll second the motion.
Ron Moore,
Yes?
Larry Carlino,
Here.
Steve Latour.
Aye.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
You're supposed to say aye.
Okay. All right, does anyone have any additional business that we should discuss at this point to move forward?
I had a question for Jeremy Lawler. If you'd be so kind.
How can I help you, sir?
My question is in relation to the police headquarters that sort of is being discussed. Is that something that at some point will come here to this group or body? And if so, when will be the appropriate time to have us kind of looped into that process?
So Cam can correct me if I'm wrong, but yes, my assumption is you all would oversee that project as well. We are still very early in the schematic design phase, so it'd be more down the road when we get to bond issuance and construction. So you're looking at probably a year at least from now.
Yeah, your involvement's generally dictated by what the city's municipal advisors and legal bond counsel determine is the best financing structure for the project.
Got it.
You serve an important role in at least rental financing, like you've seen on the fire station and the parking garage. Not every project is financed that way, so I don't think that determination's been made yet.
Good to know. Thank you.
Any other comments? John, any?
No, not at this time.
Cam, any? Well, thank you all for coming to this morning's meeting. Meeting adjourned.